Hello, everyone, and a very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Yamini Singh, and I'm the Secretary General of Foundation for Critical Choices for India. On behalf of FCCI, I would like to welcome you all to the first webinar held by the Foundation on the topic of COVID-19 and India. I would like to thank you all for joining us despite some beautiful weather outside, but we promise to make it worth your time. As you all know, the lives of everyone around the world are affected by the novel virus COVID-19. And in these times, it was but natural that we at FCCI decided to pick up this topic for our webinar as it is one of the most topical subjects right now. So without much waiting, let's begin our webinar. But before we go on, let me quickly give out some instructions to all of you. After each presentation, there will be a question answer session. If you have any questions, you can ask them via the conversation box. The moderator will pose the submitted questions to the presenter during the Q&A, and we will do our best to accommodate as many questions and comments as possible. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Pramod Agarwal, Vice President of FCCI, to please kickstart the webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Yamini, for introducing me and opening up our first ever webinar organized by the Foundation for the Critical Choices for India. I'm delighted to let the audience worldwide know about what the Foundation for Critical Choices for India is and what we are going to cover today and what we are not going to cover today in this, our first webinar. I must mention that the topic of our webinar is COVID-19 in India and unique challenges and the way forward. Of course, COVID is a global pandemic and it has affected worldwide. I don't see any country which is not affected yet. And all of us are worried about our health, our family health, and the society in general. A lot has been on a social media, on a different platform about what to do, what not to do, how to stay safe, what preventions to do, PPE kits, mask, health, medicine, those sort of things. I think we are overwhelmed with all that information. But what we have to recognize that because of COVID, every country in this world has observed or noticed some special challenges. And we will today going to focus on those unique challenges what India is facing. I will come back to that again, but I'm again delighted to say that despite this pandemic situation, Foundation is marking its 40th anniversary. And this is also our first webinar of the series of 40th anniversary, basically. So coming back to Foundation for Critical Choices for India, it is one of the oldest, rather not one of the oldest think tank of overseas Indian anywhere in the world. It has been founded in 1980 by the like-minded people, and mainly the trustees who are part of it are all walks of life, but mainly the person of Indian origin or the Indian diaspora in the Netherlands. And what do we do? Basically, we try to identify, define, and the critical topics that are affecting India at this moment or in that specific period of time. And we try to address those challenges and we try to create dialogue either verbally or in written with the policymaker both in India as well as in Netherlands to address them so that one day it could be a policy issue. I'm delighted that some of the things which we see like OCI card, PIO, dual nationalities are some of the very important things which has been raised by the Foundation in past and has really contributed to India in general and the progress of it. So at this junction, because this is the only slide I have put it for the Foundation for the Critical Choices for India, and I'm aware that there are so many people out there worldwide looking at it and reading it. please visit our website fcci.nl. We also have a LinkedIn page. We also have a Facebook page, and all the updates about our contacts and things are there. And if you're looking forward to work with us, collaborate with us, or join our foundation, I would at this juncture appeal all those people, especially the youngsters, students who are listening to this, please join it. Now coming back to this, the seminar itself, COVID-19 in India. So this morning I was trying to look at some of the figures. So these figures are really fresh from this morning around 10 o'clock. And at this moment, India is officially around, for Indians, 182,000, and for the all Europeans, 182,000 plus COVID confirmed cases. And these are the list of top 10 countries in the world which are affected with COVID-19. And of course, we are not there yet, and it's also not the intention. But what is a little bit scary, if you look at these graphs here, apart from Brazil, almost all other graphs are either towards declining or at saturation stage. And this observation is very, very important. That means we are still in the stage of going up, and the numbers are increasing rapidly. So no worries. In no time, I assume that this number will grow even further. And now at this time, the government is under tremendous pressure also to open the lockdown, which you have heard yesterday. So what you see here, the number of new cases, and this morning I had a news that around more than 8,000 people have been detected positive yesterday, and more than 250 people are dying every day. So if you look at these both graphs, they are steadily growing. They are still at exponential phase, and they are not at the saturation or the deep phase. And this is what very, very important and crucial for us to know. So when we talk in a context of all those three topics which we are going to address, this information would be crucial. So when we talk about the three specific talks which we are going to address this afternoon, then I have all three of them are very good friend of mine, but also call it the trustees and the speaker of the foundation. And so the first speaker would be Mr. Sudhir Kulkarni. He's a consultant and civil engineer himself, and he will talk on this very unique issue of role of national disaster management and the center stage coordination. Because you see, the role of national disaster management is to see if India is facing any disaster. But in past, we always faces that this disaster is coming from one place of India and not the India as a whole. If you look at the newspaper, they even say that this is the largest ever human exodus which India is observing after the partition. That means these migrant people are moving from one state to another state, and this become a very specific issue for India. And this part will be addressed by Mr. Sudhir Kulkarni. The second presenter is Advocate Pranita Deshpande. She is the Joint Secretary as well as the Director of Youth Affairs for our foundation. And she will talk about the maintaining harmony in the time of COVID-19 pandemic. Because you see, India and Indian Constitution always say that we are a republic country, and the Hindu, Muslim, and all the communities in India are part of this social fabric. That means they always wanted, they stay together. We are very multicultural community. But what you see, this COVID-19 has posed a specific challenge that this fabric of multiculturalism is on stake a little bit. And what are the legal rules and aspect, what constitution says, what Indian Penal Code says, would be said by Pranita in her presentation. Then we have Pandit Purushottam Sitaldinji. He is also the Secretary General of Indian Diaspora Council, and he will talk about the impact of Corona crisis on Indian people or Indian diaspora in the Netherlands, including the students who came here all the way from India to study, and at this moment they are residing in Netherlands. So I think we'll have a very good and very up-to-date presentation on all these three topics. I must say that each presenter will take 8 to 10 minutes to speak, and after that we will open the channels for 20 minutes for any question and answer sessions. Please type your questions in the live question and answer screen you have, possibly you as a participant or attendee can see that. You can type your question and I will read those questions for you, and you'll see that the speakers are trying to address those questions. I can't guarantee that they will have the satisfying answer all the time, but they will try to bring all the information with all the information they have gathered in this period. And with this, I would like already to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Sudhir Kulkarni, and he will speak on the role of national disaster management and center stage coordination dealing with the migration issue. Thank you very much for being with me. And in future, I would like to see some of you as our esteemed trustee of our organization. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Before I get into my presentation, there are certain things. There is too much of media exposure, and but the reliability of the information which you see on social media is with a big question mark, because even the government cannot give us the exact number of what is the exodus, how many people are involved and all that. So this exodus of labor from one state to another is most publicized and a specific issue to India. Not other countries are facing that. So that's why I'm trying to elaborate on this issue. But I prepared all my slides around 20th of May. So some of the things are further developed, and there could be questions about that, but that's not the issue. I will answer if those questions come. First 3 slides of my agenda, they relate to just refreshing what is there, the structure, organization structure, and the dates, few dates, not all the dates, to come back to the problem of interstate migration of the labor. So, and the second, the other 2 slides talk about the real issue of migration of the labor. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, this explains the National Disaster Management Authority, which was which came into force in 2005, and its chairman is Prime Minister, and then Vice Chairman has a level of Cabinet Minister, and 8 members of the authority report to him. They are of the level of State Minister. Now, and each one of those 8 people have a number of states given under them, so they can have a direct contact with those. But the NDMA has come into effect mainly for the disasters what India has faced in past, which are of the relatively short duration and applicable to smaller area, state area or whatever, like cyclones, floods, droughts, things like that. So also then earthquakes, one of that. So the NDMA, how does it functions further? Because NDMA is a center authority at the central government. Then you have at the state level, each chief minister heads a committee called State Disaster Management Committee. And then he has his own staff to deal with it. So mainly it is the center issues the instructions in relation to whatever disaster is expected or taking place, and the states implement it. Most of the time there is a good discussion between the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister before certain things are implemented. Now, in case of normal disasters, the NDMA and SDMC has a big documents called guidelines. And these 8 members of the NDMA are responsible for each of the type of disaster. For example, there is somebody for earthquake, somebody for flood, and there are guidelines given by NDMA whereby everything is given in those things, what is to be done, how it is to be handled. So all the procedures are in place. So only specific issues are discussed between the Prime Minister and Chief Minister, and the thing starts. So you don't have to work or define the roles at that time. So if you take, but this pandemic which has come, so that's the next slide, which has come, caught everybody by surprise, including India and the rest of the world. And because of that, there were no guidelines available. So the center and the states had to discuss frequently and form the guidelines as and when required. So also for the pandemic being new, nobody knew what testing kits, what vaccine are required, what will be the effect on numbers of medical facilities. Also, the biggest problem which India faced was there was no record, and nobody even today knows the exact number of this interstate migration. In general, the migrant labor is, the definition is anybody. They talk number like 450 million, but that's probably including the white collar workers, people who are working abroad and all that. But when I refer to various people, generally it comes to about 100 million people who are going to go from one state to another because of the pandemic started. Now, there are, because of this surprise, the many things were delayed instructions from the center. The state sometimes took the action on their own and stuff like that. So migrant labor, but one thing we have to note here is that migrant labor problem has always been there in India before even the pandemic. And I will come back to that. But because of that, probably everybody totally misjudged what effect it will have, this exodus, and how many people will go back to the state and all that. So for that, we have to first have few dates, related dates, not all of them. The first case was reported outside of China in 13 January. WHO declared health emergency on 30th of January. And between that and lockdown on 24th March, there were 7 weeks. Now, because there were no guidelines, the center state got involved into various discussions. They were talking about various things, but nobody at that time was aware of how big the labor problem of migration will be. So we are talking here generally about interstate migrant labor. Today in the news, I heard that there was an interview of Amit Shah of yesterday where he says that the government has moved 4.1 million people on the neighboring state as well as within the state. But we are not talking about that as such. We are talking about people who lost their job because of lockdown was declared, and suddenly all the people wanted to cut short their losses. So most of the employers, the first victims were these daily wagers or the interstate migrants who didn't have a specific labor contract as such with the main developer or the contractor, because generally these people work in gangs. They don't have specific resident. They have to organize their own. It is not done by the employer. although they are on the temporary basis. So when they lose the job because of the pandemic, their employer don't want to pay them because they are not coming to work because of the lockdown. Then issue happens, the first thing they do is try to cut their losses and go home. Now, majority of the interstate workers come from UP and Bihar. Now, suddenly people working in places like Bombay, which has the biggest percentage of it, Bombay, Pune from Maharashtra and Delhi, they suddenly wanted to go home. And the government, state, everybody was caught off guard with this. The other reason possibly could be that since nobody knew how the test kits, how many test kits are available, how we are going to use them, what is the quarantine procedures and all that. Because of that, everybody was holding their decision making by not organizing anything about this interstate labor. Now, if you look at the state, they were saying to the center, oh, you tell us, because at center there is a strong leadership. So they were expecting center to stay, especially the other BJP chief ministers, and some others were criticizing. So there was a big political agenda was also involved in it. And so as usual, the migrant labor was the victim of it. State also didn't know what would happen if they get this labor suddenly coming to the state while they are not prepared for it. So the decisions were delayed from center because of whatever instruction in relation to migration of the labor was required, and the funds which were required, because funds required for things like transporting them, food arrangement while they are moving, also probably the creating funds for their employers so that they could take care of their own labor for a short duration till the rules and regulations are in place. So all these decisions were delayed, and possibly because the government and state level didn't know how many kits were available, the test, what tests are there, how to quarantine, and all those decisions were just a lot of unknowns in there. So the migrant labor became a problem because they were from one day to another day lost their job, lost their income, and they couldn't buy food, whatever. So they had to, the best thing they do is go to the home, their own home in their own state. That's where the problem started of this exodus, because they didn't have the transport means, so they did whatever they could find, and people who couldn't find anything, they just started walking. Now, because of that, and because the number was not known, people could not organize at the government level immediately what things are. Now they are doing something, but it is not enough for the numbers. And there are NGOs and other in private individual trying to help whatever they can do about it, providing food, providing transport wherever possible. But many a times the truck owners and people are trying to take advantage of, again, this labor who doesn't have even money to buy food. So it has been mainly because of pre-pandemic, there were no implementation of the labor law that existed at that time. And migrant labor has always been at the last priority of everybody. So then you come to the possibility of what can be done about it. Now, I think that many people talk about this, but the first priority will be getting the people home. Now, government is trying to do, there are a lot of budgets created, but getting the person home should not be a big issue unless the state cooperates with the center. Because what is happening now, the state is also worried about spreading of pandemic within their state if they just allow without any test or without quarantine. And that's, you could see that when UP allowed it and Bihar was resisting it, now it seems Bihar is also allowing it. But the problem remains, if they come into the state and they can't go to their home and they are somewhere between the border and the home, stuck with again the same problem, the logistic, food, getting them home, or whether they should be quarantined or they should be home quarantined, that only can be determined by the testing of those people, and which has an enormous shortage. Also, the medical facilities are not up to the mark of testing all such a huge number. So, what are the possibilities now? First, government, state government should first priority taking them home and providing them some kind of food and financial aid, whatever is possible, and get them at peace. Otherwise, there is a possibility of unrest and riots going, which are also already started. Now, funds which can be raised, it will be by the I think my opinion is beneficiary state should put in the money, because they have been benefiting from this migratory labor for more than, for example, Maharashtra, it's for more than 50 years now. All these people are coming there, and they are needed in construction industry as well as even in some of the small businesses which they start, like selling pani puri at the corner and all that. All those people are gone because there is nothing to be earned and their livelihood is gone. So what you need is that first, most important part is for the government is to come and put the numbers in order. How much labor is working in what state, where are they coming from? And that's why I think the government is trying. Before pandemic, they talked about NCR, and then suddenly all opposition came in against government and talking about it and all that. So this is the issue, and we need to have the numbers first. That's it.
Thank you, everyone. I think we open this session for the question and answer. Thank you for very interesting presentation, Sudhirji. I already received, I think, several questions on the topic. The first question I would raise from Professor Thierry Tatarin from Section University of Applied Sciences here in Netherlands. And he says, has the crisis generated a movement of reshoring in India? So he says the feeling that businesses should be using, for instance, local population instead of relying on labor migrant from other state. Please try to be brief, Sudhirji.
That is difficult because simply because of the cost aspect and the number required, because they don't have sufficient people in state who could take up the job, and the cost of this person in state is much higher than the imported or interstate labor migrating to these people, to cities. Okay. So it is ideal, but not practical.
Okay. There is another interesting question from the same audience, Mr. Thierry Tatarin. He said, will the supply chain be affected in the future by favoring shorter lines to favor our local enterprises and resources?
The answer is same, because if you take Pune area, there is so many car parts manufacturing people that they cannot rely only on the local labor. It is not available, so they have to rely on labor coming from outside. Construction industry is the biggest, which remains on these daily wages. So it is not possible. To some extent, yes, but not better for everybody.
Perfect. I also have, I think our Secretary General also has a question to speak. If she would like to read it herself, or should I
whatever you prefer.
You can also ask Dr. Agarwal. I could also ask just a small question. Uh, in the presentation, Sudhir ji, you had mentioned that in your recommendations, you said that it would be better to implement the simplified labor laws. Could you elaborate a bit more? Do you mean that new labor laws should be made, or the existing ones should be simplified? Or is there a problem with the existing ones? Could you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Any labor law is existing is fine as long as it is implemented. What I meant simplified is there are thick books. You need lawyers to understand them also. So
Okay.
when a project manager is on some job or somewhere, he
Yeah.
doesn't even bother to read that law because he doesn't know. He doesn't have time for it. So
Yeah.
it needs to be simplified. In short, what are his responsibilities as far as the labor is concerned?
Mm-hmm.
And I can give you example. For example, in construction, people work normally in the gangs of 99 people. And I was asking, where does that number come from? Because if you go above 100,
Yeah.
suddenly you have to provide housing, you have to do insurance, you have to pay for provident fund and all that. So you have a labor gangs which are employed by the contractor, which doesn't exist above 99. Because
Okay.
they don't have to do all these things. So the
Okay.
implementation is flawed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the laws don't have are not really a problem, are they? The labor laws, they are.
Whatever law is there, our laws and everything are there in on paper. It is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if it is very old one, requires some revisions now. Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially now with such an immigration exodus of interstate labor going out, probably some adjustment is required in
Okay.
the law itself. But
Mm-hmm.
people using this labor should be aware of it, which is not there. And
Which
if
is not.
they are aware of it, they should not have jugaad to go around it.
Uh, Foolproof.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Yamini.
Implementation, not the law. Law is always foolproof. You don't need to have some labor organization putting a PIL in the court, because then itself it has gone to totally different level, whereby the users of that law and implementing that law are totally at loss. The laborer doesn't know at all. He just says, "Saab, aap jo de rahe hai, mujhe malum nahi kya hai." He doesn't even know his rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I also would ask Sumanji if she would like to, our director of PR would like to ask a question.
Thank you very much. Yes, I have several questions, but I think we all will have several questions because, as you mentioned, Sudhirji, it is not only India that was taken by surprise, it was the whole world that was taken by surprise. So to start with, how can the NDMA avoid being taken by surprise for the next phase? Because there is a next wave expected.
Yeah, but then I think that they have enough time, so they should have some guidelines in place for pandemic like this in order to reduce the impact of surprise, because they may not have testing kit for it, they may not have this for the vaccine for it, but the medical facilities should be there. And some of the guidelines for such unexpected things can be formulated in structural form, and then they could be made specific in very short time in future when something like this occurs.
May I just ask, because a pandemic like this, first of all, no living person has ever experienced a pandemic like this one. It's unique in its sort. And I was just wondering, is that a hope you are expressing, or have you seen that or in the news or wherever that measures are being taken to?
No, hope is there, but what I think is that between state and center, there are enough clever people who could have seen in the 7 weeks between 30th of Jan and 24th of March, this labor problem coming. But because generally the daily wages are not considered top priority, people were caught totally unaware of it. They totally misjudged it while it shouldn't have been the case, because they should have seen that what happens when somebody loses income. And most of the babus don't have a problem because their lifelong income is secure. So they don't think about other people's problem like that. But I'm not saying that they are incapable, but they are sort of rusted in a way.
Maybe one more question I see is about the PIL on migrant crisis. There were some PIL. Would like to say something there?
I think PIL is what they call a snapshot of that movement. It doesn't really, the labor organization came up with the PIL because of the suffering at present, but that doesn't solve the problem structurally. And my personal opinion about all this going to Supreme Court is that shows that our implementation is totally flawed. Because of that, every Tom, Dick, Harry for everything, not only labor, for everything goes to the Supreme Court, even on the things like religious matter and all that. While it should not be the case if you have a clear-cut definition of various things. But you do need to have the laws refined and made applicable and practical for today. And I think present government is trying to do that. How far they will succeed, I don't know.
Okay. Last question. If you have to give 2 or 3 top recommendations to the central government or NDMA, what that would be for you?
First is get the numbers correct.
Okay.
Without that, you cannot plan anything.
Okay.
And second thing will be, they should try to have the guidelines for such issues, because there is no guideline for pandemic. And although it could be generic type, so at least the structure is there, and you have to fill in maybe 20% specifically for certain problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Sudhirji. I think we are right at the time for your total 30-minute session, 10 minutes for this and your discussion part. So now I would like to invite our next speaker, Advocate Pranita Deshpande.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sudhirji. So I would like to invite Advocate Pranita Deshpande, and she will talk on the topic, discuss on the topic of maintaining harmony in times of COVID-19 pandemics. I think it's very important that we have to maintain the social fabric of our country, which has been protected or as stated in our constitution. So she will also highlight the legal aspect. So the floor is yours, Pranita.
Namaste everyone. It is my pleasure to be connected with all of you by this online platform. Today my topic covers maintaining harmony in times of COVID-19 pandemic, exploring some legal aspects. So let's start with some introduction. Basically, we all know that India is a union of 29 states and 7 union territories, having constitutional division of legislative responsibilities to central and a state government, which is mentioned in the 7th schedule of Constitution of India. The 7th schedule of Constitution of India defines the powers and functions of the union and state government, both the government having constitutionally legislative authority to make laws relating to the public health, and both the government also having concurrent jurisdiction to prevent the transmission of any disease by animal, plants, or human being from one state to another. So the union legislature, which particularly relating with the matters of the port quarantine. Port quarantines means matters relating to the seamen's and the marine hospitals. It also relating with the interstate quarantine. Interstate quarantine means the matters which are related with the territory and state border closures. And state legislature, which is relating to the matters related with the public health, sanitization, quarantine, then animal infection, and so on. So this is the constitutional legislative responsibility of union and the state government. In my presentation, next slide, please. Next one. Yes, here I mentioned some of the photographs which gives us a message that the Hindu-Muslim community together in the time of festival celebration, they were still together when there was a flood at Mumbai. Why disaster always makes us closer, and now in this pandemic, why there is communalization of any particular community? In my next slide, I mentioned the communalization during this pandemic. Next slide, please. Yes. As we all know that the recent unfortunate incident of Tablighi Jamaat was held the Nizamuddin Markaz area at Delhi early of March. And because of the communalization of Tablighi Jamaat incident by media, lots of fake news spread worldwide by electronic media, print media, or social media. I can use WhatsApp, Twitter, and Facebook, and so on. And many videos was also published. So because of this communalization of that particular community, the feeling of hatred and untrust must be created in particular community. Why there any illegal act caused by any particular person or group of person always blame the entire community. In my slide, I mentioned one recent incident of attack on doctors at Indore. The team of doctors with some healthcare staff went to one locality at Indore and accidentally, unfortunately, the resident of that locality directly attacked by pelting stones on them. The doctors are the corona warriors. Even the World WHO, the World Health Organization, also gives them a thanks. They are the real heroes in this pandemic. So why this untrust created in this pandemic? So in my next slide, I also mentioned some of the videos, old unrelated videos, which spread the message of that is one Muslim man. My next slide, please. The Muslim man was spitting on food in any Indian restaurant with a malicious intention to spread this virus. And one Muslim man leaking some utensil with a bad intention of spread of this virus. Because of all this fake news by media and interconnecting this particular incident with the spread of this coronavirus throughout the globe. So because of this fake news, the image of India also affects globally. As per Constitution of India, the Constitution of India, we know that it's a supreme law of India, and according to Article 14 of the Constitution, it's our fundamental right to equality. So everyone is equal in front of law. So there is no discrimination on the ground of caste, creed, gender, place of birth. So then why, because of this act of communalization, particular communities feel hatred, and because of these things, the hatred must be created in that community, and violence must be created inside our country, and this violence and this atmosphere directly affects our whole lockdown system. We all know that the globe is suffering from a war against coronavirus. Almost every sector is suffering from heavy loss, like economy, finance, health, education, and so on. But it is very important to maintain a peace and harmony inside our country. But unfortunately, the incident like attack on doctors, healthcare staff, police officer, and the most important, there is a communalization of particular community. In my presentation, in this slide, I mentioned some of the articles of the Constitution of India. And according to this article, the Zaimat Alma Ehin is the petitioner from the Tablighi Jamaat Muslim community, came out and filed a writ petition under the Article 32 of the Constitution of India. Article 32 of the Constitution of India is the soul of our Constitution of India, because if there is a violation of fundamental right of any particular person, then in that circumstances, that person having a right to file a writ petition, civil writ petition, directly to the Supreme Court of India instead of High Court or any other court. So under Article 32 of the Constitution, the petitioner filed the civil writ petition to the Supreme Court of India. As I already mentioned that because of this communalization of that particular Tablighi Jamaat incident by media, the whole Muslim community demonize and defame. So it is also the violation of Article 21 of the Constitution. Article 21 of the Constitution is a fundamental right. So right to protection of a life and personal liberty. So every individual has a right to live a life with a dignity. So because of this act of media, there is also violation of Article 21 of the Constitution. And in general, it is very important before publication of any news or any article or content, the proper verification of that content and that news must be done by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So here, the unverified fake news were published. So there is also violation of Cable Television Regulation Act 1995 and also clause 8 of the policy guidelines of uplinking of television channels. So clause 8 of the policy guidelines, which defines the offenses and the penalties. If the publication holder violates any of the provision according to this act, according to the policy guideline, so then in that circumstances, the Minister of Information and Broadcasting having a right to give the punishment of suspension of that particular channel up to the period of 30 days to 5 years. So it is very important to proper verification of that particular content must be done by the Minister of Information and Broadcasting. In my next slide, I mentioned the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897. This is a 125-year-old British colonial law. This was repeatedly used at the time of cholera, malaria, swine flu, and many more these infectious diseases. So the government, the central government of India, which is the Prime Minister plus the Cabinet Minister team, promulgate the ordinance. And on 22nd of April 2020, the Epidemic Diseases Amendment Ordinance 2020 came into force. And according to this amendment, now the offences under this act is cognizable offences and non-bailable. Cognizable means where the person can arrest, the police officer can arrest that person without warrant. So according to this amendment, if there is attack on doctors or healthcare staff, then the inspector, the senior inspector of that particular area, having authority to investigate that matter within a period of 30 days, and it is must binding on the court to decide, to give judgment on this matter within a period of year. It is a fast track on a fast track basis. And the punishment has to be given under this ordinance up to the years, up to the imprisonment, 7 years and 5 lakhs fine. So because of this violence, I want to mention in my earlier, the second slide already informed you about the incident on attack on doctors. So this amendment has to be taken by the central government of India. In my next slide please. And for the information purpose, the present lockdown was imposed as per the DM Act, Disaster Management Act, Section 6, Clause 2, to maintain a social distancing with the intention to prevent the spread of this virus. Here in this slide, I mentioned many more IPC related sections which was repeatedly used in the quarantine in India. For example, Section 269, 270 and 271 relates with if any negligent act is done by any person with a malicious intention to spread that virus in your locality. So under these sections, the punishment has to be given to that citizen. So Section 353, 332 are the Section 188, also one more Section 186. These are the sections relating with the if any criminal force or if you deter any public officer whenever during his duty, then in that circumstances under these sections of IPC, the punishment has to be given to that person. Section 34 also there if there is an attack done by 2 or more persons or several persons. So according to Section 34 is also there to punish that person. So it is very important. Next slide, please. So the remarks point. So as we all know that we believe, the Indians believe on the phrase Vasudeva Kutumbakam, means the world is one family. This period of pandemic teaches that how each one of us is connected with everybody else. So it is not only our responsibility to maintain peace and safety, the harmony inside the country, but according to the Constitution article, it is also our fundamental duty. Article 51A states that fundamental duty of a citizen to maintain a peace and harmony inside their country. To obey our lockdown is also our duty. As I already explained about the fake news things and the role of media, so here we definitely want the central government's interference, and they have to prevent the media channels by spreading these kind of fake news. See, we have almost, our law is very clear, but implementation is our problem. So we have to maintain the balance between them. See, the central and state government decisions are very well, but its ground level implementation is very necessary. The time just say that we have to say no to panic and yes to precautions. Maybe sooner or later we will definitely find a vaccine on coronavirus, but there is no vaccine on communalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranita. A very good thought when you say that there could be vaccine on coronavirus, but then there is no vaccine for communalization, and prevention is better than cure. I think very good message. Thank you. I think I have a lot of questions for you here. The question is asked by Mr. Anil Ravaladu. He's the reporter and trustee of this event as well from our foundation. And he said, how to differentiate between fake news and true news, considering there is not much information around us. I mean, he's not just talking about the people who have, very good access to internet and laptops and connections, but also people especially less educated. How do they differentiate whether the news, the information which is served to them is the true in nature or fake in nature? Do you have any guidelines as a lawyer?
Yes. This is in this presentation I mentioned one thing, that Ministry of Broadcasting, Information and Broadcasting, it is a duty of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to do something to at least people know what is to control the media channels before spreading or publishing any news. So I think so it is the responsibility of the Ministry of Broadcasting and Information to have complete control on electronic media, print media, social media. It includes Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and so on. So we want some kind of, like we know that recently the PIB, the Press Information Bureau, launched the fact check unit, but that fact check unit is related with the fake news which directly or indirectly spreading the message which is relating to the state government and the central government. But we definitely need this kind of fact check unit for non-governmental issue also, because as we already see that because of this communalization kind of thing, how people lost their trust in our society. This communalization subject is also important in this pandemic. So because of non-governmental issues, also we want this kind of, the platform.
Thank you. I think that's a connected question. The way you sounds little bit that government should do a lot of censoring, but too much censor on media is also not good, because that's what in past people were suffered, and then you call it black era when there is too much control on media. And there must be a fine line, and there should be some guidelines, I assume, should be propagate. Also the ethical guidelines, I would say, which should take it forward. Any opinion on that? Because too much of censorship is also not good.
Yeah, that is very important. As I already talk about the Cable Television Network Act and the policy guidelines. See, our law is very perfect on every issue, but the problem is implementation. I completely understand that because of India having such a overpopulated country, it's balancing between the too many, because India having so many others problems facing in this pandemic, that is overpopulation, the farmer suicide, female safety. I can completely understand the situation of our government. We are not here to blame our government. We are here to finding out the solution of these unanswered questions. Because in this pandemic, we just lost the trust of particular community. We are not favoring any particular community and opposing the government guidelines. No, our intention is to find out the solution, because our law is clear and perfect. We want the proper machinery for its implementation. I think so. Implementation is a solution.
Thank you. I think our director of PR, Sumanji.
Yeah, has just been waiting to pose this question. Yeah, but I do think, you see, we have an NDMA, which is responsible for coordinating stuff. This is such a huge thing that has come over us. India is so unique with its population, with its interstate things. There is a role for government in this to manage fake news, to manage it. So not entirely control it, but do something about it. Also, I think there should be a role for the NDMA. What do you think?
See, I can completely understand. There are so many good guidelines also government can give time to time. See, some sections of IPC, that is section 153A or 188, then these all acts of the law is perfect. I just spoke about all these things, but see, the situation is very uncertain, because no one is prepared for this pandemic. Everything just within a day, just government announced this lockdown. There are so many other sectors also government government having responsible to look after other sections also. So maybe we have to give some time to our government. We just have to wait. So maybe in future government can.
There is very important question and also raised by our own trustees and General Secretary General Yamini ji. And what she said is, you see, the highlight of your presentation is about mistrust between two communities, and usually when there is a disaster on a family or society, they come together, and when they come together, they can defeat a bigger enemy. But now we have the biggest enemy so far, and we sounds bit divided. The communalization is happening a little bit. But what role government should play? Because the constitutional guidelines are there. The implementation is a little bit weaker, but the guidelines are very loud and clear that we are a republic nation. Every citizen of this country has the same rights, equal rights, and we are all one big family, let's say. But the mistrust is there. So what do you think more specifically government should do now in this period to build this trust?
In my opinion, government have to start some kind of initiative to prevent this control, to do something to remove the feeling of untrust in this particular community. Because see, in this pandemic we definitely want a unity in this diversity, as we know that India is a country having unity in diversity. So definitely we want a unity of our citizens in this diversified situation. So I think I already explained about the PIB fact check units. So I think so these kind of units will also be launched by government for non-governmental sectors. The strict implementation of law, the proper machinery, we want the proper source, the ground level implementation is very necessary. So government have to take care of that.
Thank you. There is one question from anonymously, and it says that are the guidelines in the clause 8 applicable to social media as well, or is it
which one?
The guidelines in clause 8, which you have mentioned earlier?
Policy guideline, yes.
Yeah, is it also applicable to social media, or just a well-established media like print or electronic?
These policy guidelines are applicable to with all the medias, means electronic media, print media, social media, also the YouTube's videos. It's applicable to everything because the proper verification must be done by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting before publication of any kind of fake news. There are some sections of IPC, that is section 153A and section 153B of IPC also laid down some kind of rules and regulation before publication or before spreading any kind of messages on WhatsApp. If any person just spread any message which is a result of starting spreading unrestlessness among the people, any fake video or any hate speech or any pornography or any video which is directly affecting or blaming particular community, then in that circumstances these sections of IPC directly punish the offender 3 to 5 years of imprisonment also there. But it is the duty of our citizen to inform our government by website. There are cyber cells are there. So this I think so the website name is some cybercrime.gov.in. So it's available on internet. So you have, it is a duty of the citizens to just file a complaint through this website. And under this PIB fact checkup unit also, the government of India also gives us a WhatsApp number, then email ID, then all the if you have to put any complaint, just you have to write down in the Twitter. So the government definitely take action against this kind of viral news.
Yeah, there is one bit controversial, strong question which I see from anonymously raised. It reads that with India be a multicultural country, there is a Hindu Act, there is a Muslim Act, there is a Sikh Act or Christian Act. So will it be fine to bring common Indian Act? Would that help to bridge the mistrust between the communities, or that everyone is treated same and not differently from both sides to balance? I mean, maybe not directly related to this whole webinar topic, but could it be something which you could think about as a lawyer or as a what's your opinion?
As a suggestion kind of view, it is good, but the implementation is difficult, because as we all know that the Constitution of India is a supreme law of India. It consists of 448 articles. It's one of the largest constitution of India. So it is very difficult to change each act and provision, and because our law is perfect, the problem is implementation.
Yeah, okay. But isn't it a strong statement when you say law is perfect? Because if it's so, then why there are so many lawyers around? I think we also have a lot of lawyers ourselves. So this is a question, by the way, not my personal remark on you or anyone, all the lawyers in the panel. But if law is perfect, is it also relative? I think the law is in a specific timeline in the history or in future or in current. I think we need to continuously look into it, get rid of all the flaws out of it, and try to make it sure that it fits rightly for that time of the audience or that time of the people. Yeah.
See, as we know that India is a cultural based country, so it has many religions, and as I told, is Article 14 says we are equal. No one is less and small in front of law. Everyone is equal. Our law gives us equality treatment. So there is no discrimination on ground of caste, creed, then the gender, the place of birth and all. See, our law is perfect. The problem is, I already told that the implementation is our problem, and our law is based on the cultural base. Our base is our culture. So we have to respect our government guidelines time to time, and this is and it is impossible to amend all the sections because it's huge.
Yeah, but I think there are 2 or 3 messages which are very strong out of your presentation, Pranita. One is we have to follow the Constitution. I think that is the biggest guiding book or we have, which our founding fathers have decided to go on the line. And all the citizens are equally, should be treated, and everyone at all level, from personal to governmental level, try to bridge this gap and create this trust amongst the communities so that we can fight against one big enemy, which is COVID-19 at this moment. I think that is a biggest message. What I see that a lot of questions are related to social media, media in general, fake news, because news to create a content, everyone can create that on their fingertips using smartphones very quickly. And how much to control, because if you try to control too much, then it goes in the line of little bit, how you call it, censorship. So it's a lot about ethical issues, a lot about educating people how to deal with right information, and also not to forward that information which is not justified or which has not been proven in some sense. Having said that, being the program responsible of the foundation, I think it is very, very important message also for me to probably think about our next webinar on the topic of role of social media or media in general and how it's impacting, because what you also hear in critics that the quality of news which has been feeded to this millions and millions of people is probably very poor quality, not in terms of the pixels and the HD, but in terms of the quality of the news or information, what they should get it. And also the information has to propagate to all the layers of the society, because some layers are a bit educated so they can absorb news differently, but the different layers are not. I think that's a very good topic. Having said that, I think we should stop with this part of the discussion, and I think we can now move forward to the next presenter. And the next presenter we have is Purushottam Sitaldin ji, and I will introduce you. Thank you very much, Pranita, for being with us with your very thought-provoking presentation, which you have perfectly hold that, you know, how you call it, when you say that if we build a trust, I think we go a long way as a country. Thank you very much. So with this, we go to our next speaker. And let me change the slide. Yeah, our next topic and the last topic for today is impact of Corona crisis on Indian diaspora in the Netherlands. I think most of us in Netherlands are aware about it, but people who are listening all around the world, it's important to mention that Netherlands has the second largest Indian diaspora in mainland Europe. And now after Brexit, I think the largest diaspora in mainland Europe. And Mr. Purushottam Sitaldin, who is also economist and philosopher, but is also the Secretary General of Indian Diaspora Council or Indian Diaspora Raad in the Netherlands. He also appears several times on the newspaper, but also in the television and radio for his talks. We'll try to bring some information on this topic. Mr. Purushottam Sitaldin is also the Director of Publication for our foundation. And so the floor is yours, Purushottam ji. We still have to get the. So meanwhile, Purushottam ji is trying to come on air. I can add some information about the Indian diaspora in the Netherlands. The world diaspora is connected to the migrant again, but in this case, these migrant people are not there for a day or a week or a month, but they are moving between the countries and then they reside in the new country, host country. And there is a big Indian diaspora in Netherlands. And as I said, this is the longest.
I think. Do you hear me?
Yes, Purushottam ji, welcome.
Okay.
Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Charis. Okay, again, namaste, sat sri akal, and good afternoon to all. I am starting immediately with the presentation. The preface. The effects of COVID-19 are generally known, but without any differentiation to the effects on the Indian diaspora in the Netherlands. So it is important to list this And also very important it is to try to present an opinion for the near future, realizing that the COVID-19 cannot be eradicated, because the question is not if there will be a new wave of the virus, but when it will happen. Also, it is reported such in het Financieel Dagblad in Holland on May 13. So the assumptions now, there is no official reports, articles, nor any known research regarding the COVID effects on India, diaspora, and Netherlands. The presented findings resulted from survey and interviews. So there is no absolute final conclusion in this presentation. The definition: the Indian diaspora in Netherlands can be divided in two segments. The Suriname Hindustani, being the generation Hindustani with direct roots in Suriname, indirect in India, and the Bharatiya Hindustani in the Netherlands, being the generation Hindustani with direct roots in India. So an estimated number for the Indian diaspora is about 250,000 and 58,000 for Bharatiya Hindustani and 190,000 persons for the Suriname Hindustani. Page 3, please, Pramodji. Okay. Some areas of impact in general are health, social, culture, religion, legal, and economy, financial. To be discussed areas with only a few aspects are the social, culture, religious, and the economic, financial areas. And now please to page 4. I will discuss a few parameters of the social. 1 second, please. I have to. Yes. Okay. Sorry. The effects on the economic, financial areas can be divided in effects on companies and individuals. The effect on companies can be almost equated with the general effects on the economy, such as closure of, for example, cleaning companies. This is one of the areas in which the Indian diaspora, in particular the Suriname Hindustani, is very active. You have also real estate owners, landlords of houses, are confronted with abuse of legal regulations for tenants. The tenants have the right to postpone rent payments if they have a decrease in income due to COVID. There's a very big abuse of this. So the individuals now, the reports in Holland, the reports that they are saying that half of the Dutch are in debt, and that at least a third of the debtors are in debt problems. The report doesn't seem to apply to the Indian diaspora to this extent. At least a much lower percentage is more likely, since the Indians are considered to be more economical and have more financial buffers. Now about the employed persons, the Suriname Hindustani experience the same effects as the average Dutch. At the Bharatiya Hindustani, the group of students, new graduates, and expats with a temporary contract is very prominent. A substantial part is connected to the IT sector at companies such as IBM, Tata Consultancy, Philips, ASML, etc., where the change in the economy is always immediately felt first. So I do have some problem here with my computer, with my laptop. Let me see. So, okay, I hope that it is fixed now. 1 second, please. Okay, yes, it's fixed. This due to the downturn in economy, there are many contracts terminations. In accordance with legislation, in accordance with the legislation, preference should be given .
We cannot hear. I think we cannot hear Purushottam Sitaldin ji, but what he was taking us through, that what is the effect of COVID-19 on Indian diaspora in the Netherlands. And he tried to split all those effects in several parts, such as health, social, cultural, religious, legal, and economic and financial sectors. Though this situation is fairly new from March 2020 onwards, so we are only into 3 months, there are no absolute data, or there's no quantitative data available to identify where we are standing and what the problems are. But what he says, that he broadly divided everything into 2 groups: social, cultural, and religious, and economical and financial. In case of social, cultural, and religious, he see that people have more family time. I think that's also nice. So there is a positive side of it, and people are a little bit more happy and playing with kids and things like that. There are some cases of domestic violence as well, because now all the members of family are also staying together, and there is less privacy and maybe little frustration because of job loss and those sort of things. The weddings and religious gatherings have been postponed for unlimited time. We don't know how long. And the elderly care, especially in Netherlands, is affected because those are staying in quarantine or in an elderly house where it is difficult to to visit them. If Purushottamji is back, he can also take the...
Yes, I hear this, that you have been going further. That's very good.
No, I just repeated what you said. So.
Oh, okay. Then I have to, okay. The Bharati Hindustani. I was busy with the economic effects on the Bharati Hindustanis here in Holland. Do I say at the Bharati Hindustani, the group of students, the new graduates and expats with a temporary contact is very prominent. So a substantial part is connected in the IT sector. Oh yes, sorry, that I have said already. And yes, in accordance with the legislation, preference should be given to Dutch employees here. And nowadays, now in Holland, it is so that there is an abundance of well-qualified Dutch workers. So many expats have to return to India, which is currently not possible due to the travel ban. On this moment, there is a very exemplary and a very urgent case of students of India here. The residence permit of about 300 students are up to expiration, and they also faces the travel ban. So, okay, that is, and now to page 3, about the social effects. You were mentioning that, I hear.
That has been mentioned.
Yeah. Yes, there's a few parameters of the social effects. So on the family experience then, due to the working at home, for the Dutch natives, the tension at home increases, while the Indian diaspora generally experiences an increase in domestic happiness, glad to be more together. The domestic violence, a 50% increase of domestic violence in the period of the pandemic is reported in Netherlands. These reports are not presented with the necessary nuances. From my findings, there has been no increase in domestic violence among the Indian diaspora due to COVID-19 divorce. There is also no increase in the number of divorces, which is, however, significantly the case among the natives here. Weddings, religion, marriage has been postponed, often by a year or more, because of the elaborate wedding celebrations, facing the disappointments of the bride and groom, but okay. And the religion, the influence of COVID limitation is noticeable in the religious experience among segments with the necessary nuances. For example, differences concerning the visit of the houses of worship, the mandirs, gurudwar. I will discuss this further during the question and answer part. Elderly care, parental care has suffered less, as the Hindustani, this Bharatiya and the Sarnami Hindustani, elderly live much less in elderly care institutions. So we can go to the last page now. From the summary findings and recommendations, not all of the stated general effects of COVID on Dutch society apply equally to the Indian diaspora. The economic impact on business is almost parallel to the general trend in the economy here. The group that actually feels or will feel the effects of COVID-19 in a very large number in the short term are the Indian expats and students, the recent graduates. There are contradictions of expectations concerning the economic development. For example, there is the decline in activity as a result of which contracts are cancelled in the IT sector. And at the same time, there is an increase in the demand for IT experts because of the required technology due to the increase in the working from home, the new normal of Rutte, the upcoming 30 employees. So our perspective, with which we look to the world at the world, is changed by COVID. Quoting Professor Dr. Roland van der Vorst, we must have a perspective of a mountaineer. The uncertainty coming from below feels more intense than the unstable road leading upwards. Not only a vertically view looking down and up, but a more horizontally view is required. And he said that enjoying the view, see what you can contribute to the plateau on which you talk. So finally, as my own summary opinion, so please, all of us discover the new chances due to the COVID crisis. I'm quoting out of the Vedanta philosophy and the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. He said that see not only the benefits of what is there, but see the benefits what is not, that what we do not have. This shouldn't be a problem for our Indian diaspora because the inventiveness and adaptability, our, what you say in Sanskrit, we say the lechaipan, our elasticity that we have in our genes. That is it.
Thank you very much, Purushottam ji. Was a very elaborative presentation on a topic which has been emerged in a very small time frame. In last 3 months, we are observing this and we have been asked you to prepare on this topic, and you really come up with a very vast explanation on each aspect. I have some questions already for you as well. The question is raised by Professor Tari Tatarin from Section University, and he says, I wonder how the Indian diaspora has been able to cope up with the confinement and lack of religious and other gatherings where they would normally meet. So what he means is I saw many activities online, of course, but beyond what is done to try to substitute this online, what is the real mood of people? Would you like to comment on that, Purushottam ji? I think there is some issue with connectivity, but in general, the message what Purushottam ji is trying to give us is Indians are more flexible with their attitude and they're more adaptive. So at home front, at personal level, there is a minimal effect of that. But of course, we are also facing the time when the economy probably see downward trend, and maybe a lot of people have to get rid of, their jobs will disappear or their contracts are getting cancelled. But it's also contradictory in IT. They probably need more and more people now because things has to go more and more digital. So it's a very contradictory thing. The Dutch government also tried to bring something in, some more information on it. Jasbirji, would you like to add something if you are there? I think I would welcome you at this place already.
Okay, I think that I am back now.
Okay, Purushottam ji. Okay, yes. There was a question about what is the real mood of people in Hindustani or Bharatiya community, as you said, because they like to meet in temples or in religious places or for wedding, and we are social
yes.
animals sort of, so more. So is that basically affected somehow? Of course, that has been affected, but
okay. Okay, thank you very much, and excuses. I hope that I will not have any problem now. First, some assumptions. First, I cannot elaborate on all religions and beliefs. Secondly, okay, it is not an issue now but it should be clear that I see the Hindus and the Sikhs as one. But I now have to make the distinctions because of the current opinion. So my answer on your question is, in my observation, let me take the Sikhs. There's the Sikhs. There's approximately about 45% of the Bharati Hindustani here. The Sikhs have more difficulty in not visiting the Gurudwara than the average Hindu who cannot go to the mandir. I think that this is due to the higher degree of social perception, social activities like the langar during the visit of the Gurudwara. And because for the Hindus, praying at home is primarily instant for the mandir. So it can be assumed that for Sikhs, the lack of the visit to the Gurudwara will be heavier than the lack of the mandir visit for the Hindus. And for the Muslims, the limitation of the mosque visits is without a doubt very painful. That is what due to my
No, this is very good. Thank you. There is, I think there is one topic which was a little bit less highlighted now because of this connectivity issue in your presentation, is about the students, you know.
Oh, yes, yeah.
In Netherlands, we have a lot of migrant students who come to study to us, to Netherlands, and the whole idea is if they do graduate from Netherlands, either a master, bachelor or PhD, they can get 1 year job search visa. And that is the time where they can find a suitable job according to their caliber or skills. But what has happened now is because of COVID-19, the Zukyar, the job search visa period is getting, you know, slowly drained away, basically their time. And that means officially that time will pass soon. And if they still do not have a right job, which they could not find because of COVID-19, and hundreds of students are affecting because of it. So there is a question from our own trustee, Prakash Ayerji, and he is asking, hello Sitaldin ji, what can we do to help students from Indian diaspora? You know, these are the people, how we can help them, basically.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, in the past, let me begin here. We do have the Indian Diaspora Council Netherlands as part of the Foundation Indian Diaspora Europe. The president is also Mr. Jasbisi. And in the recent past, we have done such in the case of the International School Twente. There was that was very positive. Yes. And now this group has put this question, the request to us, also to support their petition, what they have written to the ministers. And soon the board of the Indian Diaspora Council will discuss this. And I think, I do have full belief that the board will decide to discuss, to support them. This we can do on this moment.
Thank you. There is another question which is connected to the same topic, but I think that is in general little personal. Some students are asking if being a student, you know, they are new to this country and they don't know all the laws and regulations, rules about it. So if they face any legal issues, students, where they think it's not their mistake, whom they can contact? Could they also contact IDC in this regard, or what do you say? Any remarks, Purushottamji? I think Purushottamji's connection is a little weaker at this moment. Let's hope that he comes back. But meanwhile,
Pramodji, otherwise, should I say something on that?
I think that's a wonderful. Please come back.
Of course, this issue is very close to our heart. And these are our future of our India. And of course, it's our duty to do whatever possible for this group. And though it's quite difficult to individually address each and every issue, but this is a common issue being faced by many of these youngsters, and they are most welcome to address these questions to the IDC. And of course that we will discuss, and it's a possibility that we will approach the government on their behalf. I think Sitalji is back again.
I'm not sure yet, but if you'd like to add a little bit from Indian diaspora and impact, your thoughts on it so far, because you're, for everyone who is not, because I also have to introduce you, Jasbirji, because we are not in just Netherlands, but I think we have an audience also worldwide. And I'm delighted to also introduce also lawyer by profession and the president of our organization, Foundation for Critical Choices for India, Mr. Jasbir Singh. And he's also the president and the head of Indian Diaspora RAD, or Indian Diaspora Council. Yeah. And there was a question again also, maybe I can also, Yamini Singh, Yamini ji has mentioned that it also depends upon the type of legal issues. Is it a personal legal issue or collective legal issue? As you have said, if the issue is connected to the student as a community whole, or for their protection in some sense, then of course they can reach to Indian Diaspora Council and those so on. But everyone, if they do not have a right contacts, they can always reach us to FCCI, and we can also forward those information to IDC at the right channel. So that should not be a problem. Okay, then how do we do it? We are a little ahead of time now, because if I have to say that all questions are not taken yet. So
I think you can use this time to raise those questions that even in the earlier session to those presenters. Yes. For example, then they have now the time, a couple of minutes extra, so we can utilize that if you like.
Closing relation to COVID. Yeah. So there is an. Others moving towards sustainability is also a very, very important topic. And I think he and Section University is doing some research in this area as well. And everyone is also welcome to join that research. I will probably publish that link which he has shared, and people can also try to log in and see what sort of help they are looking in this regard. There is a specific question also. Let me see. There are also a lot of positive remarks about. Pranita, the question is mainly for you. Of course, what we talk in terms of legal aspects when it comes to building trust between the communities, one of the audience or attendees thinks that nothing is perfect and there's always scope of improvement. So could we live up to that? Could we live up to it, saying that, okay, nothing is perfect in this world and there is nothing called absolute perfectness? But do you have any? I think it's a bit of a philosophical question to you, but are we at least close to being perfect when you think about it, or?
See, as I think the world is facing a war against coronavirus. In this period of crisis, we literally wants the support of our Indians. We have to maintain the peace and harmony inside our country by following lockdown rules and by maintaining for maintaining this peace and harmony. It is very important to stop this communalization by fake news. We have complete control on the media channels. We want the support of our government for building this trust again in our community. Only together we will definitely find against this virus. I think so. unity in diversity. The pandemic wants the unity of our own citizens in this diversity situation.
Okay, thank you. There's one question for Sudhirji, if you are still there. It says that, sir, how can the coordination between the center and state be strengthened? As lack of coordination was one of the major reasons for delay in decision making for the migrant laborers in their evacuation. Would you like to comment on that, Sudhirji?
I think that it's improving the center state thing has to do with keeping aside the political agendas of various parties and just have a structural action group created for very specific problem, coming up with the recommendation. Because now after the pandemic, I am sure they will come up with the guidelines how to tackle this in future. But again, there also you need to have somebody who can advise them. There are enough people available in the government who are clever enough, yeah, to do that. I don't have to give them any advice. They can find that themselves, and if they need advice, they can ask people.
Yes. There is a question, I don't know, is it directly related to one of the three areas what we are discussing today? I mean, though Purushottamji tried to touch a little bit upon the economic aspect, and it says that how will the bilateral trade between Netherlands and India look post COVID-19 for the small, medium scale enterprises and the big multinational companies in India? I
think it's a crystal ball. Okay. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
The money available in the market is important for that, and many people are trying to pull back, but some industrialists are thinking this problem as an opportunity. So hopefully they come up with positive things on that.
Yeah. Pranita, there is one question for you from Mr. Pratik. He's from Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai, and he says that why was there no such amendments in the Epidemic Act 1897 was made till COVID-19 situation appears in front of us, despite the outbreak of this Nipah H1N1 virus or something like that, you know. So why it took 120 years before this amendment comes into the force? Would you like to?
Yeah, I already informed that this Epidemic Diseases Act already applied repeatedly at the time of cholera, swine flu, malaria, dengue. So it is very difficult to amend the whole act as per, because see, no one is prepared for this pandemic. So in this crisis situation, it is better to amend the particular sections of that particular ordinance. It is very difficult to amend whole act because India having lots of other issues also. I already spoke about there, because in this pandemic there are, as Sitalji explained, that there are many more domestic violence cases rapidly increasing in this period of crisis. There are many more female migrants who are suffering from their daily needs, that is food, clothing and shelter. Even there are lack of sanitary pads, the maternity facilities to that female migrants. There are many other issues also. So it is not easy to amend particular act because we have the crime area is so big, and the crisis situation is very unpredictable for the government also. So we just amend the act, the provision of that act as per the situation.
Yeah, thank you. There's one last question. I can raise it for you, and then we can move forward. The question came from Abhashing, and the person asked, as recently PIB, I assume that Public Information Broadcasting Ministry, started scrutinizing news related to state and the union government. But can't it be applicable to all sort of news, as spread of anti-national and disharmonious content always spread through non-governmental news channels, you know, an individual or group of people or something like that? What do you think?
So this PIB fact check unit is specially for the purpose to combat the fake news relating to the central and the state government the PIB unit just open one Twitter handle account and giving the email ID, WhatsApp number, and also some helpline numbers. If you find any unrelated fake news relating to the central and the state government only, and it includes all the media, electronic media, then print media, social media. So social media means Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, everywhere, but related to the central and the state government.
Okay, thank you. I think we crossed the time, and we are reaching to the last part of our session, and I would like to welcome the president of our foundation, Mr. Jasbir Singh, to make some sort of concluding remarks and word of thanks for our first ever webinar, which we are conducting here. It was our best try we gave for the first time. I don't know how it was experienced by all the audience and participants. And it was tried to be prepared in less than 3 weeks time. So thank you. The floor is yours, Jasbirji. No, the microphone is microphone.
Sorry, you see these hitches. Thanks, Pramodji. You see, we are learning, and most of us, at least in the learning process, of course, is a new situation. I personally feel that you said that we are trying to coordinate and this new way of meeting. I think that you and your team, I should put it that way, it is you leading that whole team with our director of digital platforms, Mr. Manas Manohar. He doesn't want to show his face, but we are all thankful to him. Primarily, before I start thanking other persons, thanks to him that he made this possible. Yes, we can clap for him. Absolutely, that he goes. I think that most of us, like me and others, joined just at 2 o'clock, but he's almost busy a complete day, even yesterday, trying to help out many people like myself, for example, with all the technical hitches that come forward. And I think that tried, and personally, I feel there's a success given the situation that we are in the learning process. Not the team itself, but other people, the speakers, technical equipment. Sometimes this is for the complete word, this is a new experience. But I think that's a great experience. At least it feels great the way it's thanks to you and especially our director of digital platforms, Manaji. If you hear, great again. As far as the presentations, the content part, not only that, by the way, I must compliment Pranita ji, that the way of presentation, that our one of the youngest trustees, yes, I see a very promising leader of our community in the future. This is the way that how she can communicate, very fluent. Of course, we have seen other Yamini ji earlier also, but okay, she is a little bit senior to Pranita ji, but especially that I'm so proud to be part of this team with such talented colleagues. So it's a great to be part of this. As far as, again, coming back to the content part of the presentations, as our Secretary General, Dr. Yamini ji, she is so to the point, and I experienced that also on the Constitution Day. She is also very direct and very, I would say, perfect approach to the issue she would like to address. So thanks a lot to her, and of course, Pramodji as Vice President of Programs. I don't know where to start without you. Let's and then coordinating all the contents of all presentations, trying to update that, and even moderating this session. Of course, this is new. You have not done so often digitally, but I think it suits you. You are doing it perfectly well. I think that I am speaking on behalf of all the participants today when I say this. And of course, that this is we up to now, knowing you for such a long period, we don't expect anything less than perfect from you. So that's exactly what we are seeing also. We have not so often got the chance to listen to Sudhirji, Mr. Sudhir Kulkarni, but the way he presented that very critical issue, that migrant issue. By the way, we face that migrant issue and international perspective very often. Even in this country, it's a lot of discussions go on that issue of migrant in politics and all those. But in India, yeah, unfortunately, as he put it very rightly, after the partition is the biggest migration taking place, interstate migration. And I think that we have not discussed the migration internally. I mean, in each state also, from villages, from the countryside to the cities, people who went there, they are going back. But that's less highlighted somehow than this migration from, especially from two states, UP and Bihar. Yeah, that's absolutely true that the government was taken off guard. Nobody was prepared for this. This is of course something that the government can learn, and as we all almost nobody is predicting this is the end of COVID-19. And this is they might be the curve might be flattening, but most of the societies are preparing. It can revive, it can come back, it can. So this is not end of the crisis, but it's a learning process. I feel that we did not, because due to the limitation of time, he did not touch upon that. When we are talking about the migration of labor workforce, people and coming in huge numbers to the states of UP and Bihar. Well, I still don't know how they will be able to deal with that, if because the people went out of those states because there was not enough work at home, and I don't know how this will be addressed by those states. And there was first in the UP there was some very strange kind of statement was given that before they leave the state again there will be some kind of procedure. Later it was withdrawn, luckily. But I still I'm really worried about the situation of these migrant workers. It was not for nothing that they left homes to seek a job 2,000 kilometers away in the south, or in even Punjab. Yesterday I got a phone call also from some representative of a farmers association. He said it's a very strange kind of situation happening in Punjab. We are in dire need of labor force, and that the labor who is still there now, they are demanding almost 3 times their normal wages because there is such a shortage, and so it will have its impact on many issues. But again, coming back to his presentation, it's absolutely fantastic that he was able to address all the major issues regarding this the center state, and even when we talk about that again, that our federal structure sometimes it comes to the forefront, whether that federal system is functioning as it should. Hopefully we will have the states as well as the center will have learned some lessons from the mistakes that were made by the abrupt decisions taken without taking into account what will happen to this migrant workforce in such huge numbers. Of course, those facilities were not in place. The people who are traveling for days, there are not sufficient sanitary facilities, not food facilities. So it is that the toll is huge, and of course that it's not. One thing I'm sure that we should avoid kind of a blame game. This because this is new situations. Very often, even you see in very advanced countries like America, that things are going terribly fault. Compared to them, again, it's better. How India is dealing with that issue, and despite the very limited resources. But on the other hand, it is also again coming to the forefront how the people are reaching out to each other. But as far as Pranita ji's presentation, it was mind-boggling that almost all relevant legal issues she brought to the forefront related to this issue, and of course that keyword, that trust deficit that we are facing now. Yeah, that's absolutely that's something that hurts at present. That has also did hurt our prestige at international level. Two very important issues. One was, we will discuss that hopefully in one of those coming webinars, that the parameters for the freedom of press. That's quite strange. That's paradoxical. On one side, we are saying that okay, press is just blurring out whatever they think without thinking about that quality. On the other hand, internationally seen that it is being labeled that our level of freedom of press is going down. So we have that's also worrisome. On the other hand, also because of this communalization of the situation, some very, very friendly Muslim countries, they started raising concern about the way that things are being handled in India. I hope that as the Indian government has been trying to reach out to our friends in all sections of the world community, that even for the sake of that, our image, that communalization that has taken a toll, and we as ambassadors of our own country, that I see ourselves as ambassadors of our nation in other countries to the host country, and we have to defend our society, our country, and sometimes even our government also. But this is a very, very frustrating experience that we have gone through, and of course that we still hope that common sense will prevail. People should come together, join hands in times of distress, and not start a blame game. And of course, then if we go through international press, of course that's even in a couple of days back in the Volkskrant of this country, in which it was mentioned that COVID is very happy with the large gatherings of cultural events and religious whatsoever. So it's not nothing to do with any single religion. This is the way of life people are used to, and nobody was prepared for it. And somebody was having a carnival in south of this advanced country without knowing that this would lead to some problem. Other was having a religious congregation and then started blaming them for somebody. It might be a different story if somebody is trying to blame, trying to harm others. But if the person would not do knowingly something to himself or herself and to own family first, because before it goes to others, first affected as the person self and the people around. So it is totally silly to blame anyone for as has been going on. So thanks, Pranita ji. It was just wonderful the way you and trust deficit we have to address. Then Seetal Deen Purushottam ji, of course that it's as you dual role in FCCI and also as General Secretary of our IDC. It was excellent way of putting that exactly the figures and that your own also being a philosopher, I would say, that trying to address those sociological aspects, but even the economic aspects. Some of these we will see, because this crisis is not over. We will have to evaluate the whole situation, I think, after some time again. And of course, wherever we get feedback from our own community, we will have certainly will have more events of this kind, and certainly on maybe on certain part of this. But thanks a lot for in preparing in such a short time. You did a wonderful job. Thanks for that. And it would not be fair not to mention another important person for the role, that was our director of PR. She did her utmost best to reach out to all sections of community in this country and even beyond this country, so that those interested could join us from everywhere. So thanks, Sumanji. Great job done, and I hope that will be in the coming period. This action will be repeated. And last, not the least, our audience of today, the participants, and especially those who put the questions. Some very, very interesting. Even just I would like to applaud for them, because there we learn FCCI is a think tank, and think tank generates ideas, and there is no one single person or a group of person who has any monopoly of wisdom. So we need input from each and every person who is capable of giving us some piece of advice with putting questions, comments. So please do that. And as our president, vice president, very much in the beginning said, we are always looking forward to welcome more persons who are very much willing to contribute to the such kind of discussions and the overall progress and development of our motherland India. So if those friends who joined it for the first time, if any one of you feels that we are doing something useful and you would like to contribute, please do join us. You can just send an email to fcci.nl or to our secretary, Dr. Yamini Singh. She will be more than happy to accommodate you or any other trustee, because every trustee, you can approach anyone and then it will be forwarded through certain channels. And so with those words, I am, of course, I would, it is not the end of this session as such for the session today, but it will have some follow-up. And my request to our Vice President Program, Dr. Pramod Agarwal, to think about it, how we proceed from here based on the questions posed and how the situation develops. With those words, I would like to thank each and everyone who contributed in one way or the other, and those even who were not unable to put a question but were participating, because if the people prepare, put a lot of effort preparing the presentation, and it is not enough people who attend or participate or listen to such events, then the effort is not appreciated properly. So we have to do it, and that's where we really need you as participants. Thanks to all of you, and I also would like to thank the complete team for keeping such a wonderful, efficient way dealing with the issue that we can conclude in time. Thanks again.
Thank you, Zakir. I think we are right on time. It's 4 o'clock. We try to manage the time as efficient as possible. I thank you again for your leadership, and I thank all the team members also to make this shift from physical to digital. We will come up with more and more webinars in coming period. Please stay connected. Please subscribe to our mailing list. Please watch the digital space fcci.nl. Please connect to our LinkedIn and Facebook pages, and we'll come back to you. So with those words, I would like to close this session for thanking all the audience. Thank you and have a nice day further.